Good morning, Year 6, and welcome to Monday's maths lesson, the last Monday home learning lesson before we're back in school. Hurrah! Okay, here we go with brushing those weekend cobwebs away with a little starter activity. Now, we're going to be looking at rounding decimal numbers today, so we've got a bit of a decimal starter. So you have got some decimal numbers across the top of the screen here. Okay, you've got 0.47, 0.37, 0.12, 0.53, 0.87, 0.41, 0.79, 0.19, and finally 0.42. Now remember, immediately after the decimal point, that's the tenths column in our grid. Okay, so straight after the decimal point is the tenths column. Straight after the tenths column is the hundredths column. So you've got a Venn diagram here. And what you've got to do is you've got to look for any numbers which have a 4 in the tenths column, so straight after the decimal point. And then you also have to look for any that have a 7 in the hundredths column, because they would go in here. And any that have a 4 in the tenths and the 7th in the hundredths columns would go there. Those that don't fit any of those would just go round the outside. So you will need your purple books. You will need something to write with. You will need to put today's date, the 1st of March. Goodness me. And then you're going to draw this diagram and you're going to use those numbers and place them where they should go. And we'll see if you're right in a few minutes' time. Pause the video and off you go. Okay, Year 6, let's see how you got on then. So we've got 0.47 or 0.47. Well, that has a 4 in the tenths place and the 7th in the hundredths, so it goes here, 0.47. 0.37, well, it doesn't have a 4 in the tenths column, but it does have a 7 in the hundredths column, so it would go here, 0.37. 0.12, well, it doesn't have a 4 in the tenths, it doesn't have a 7 in the hundredths, so this would go out here. 0.53, exactly the same. No 4 in the tenths, no 7 in the hundredths, so it could go round the outside. 0.87, that's not got a 4 in the tenths place, but it has got a 7 in the hundredths, so 0.87 would go there. Then we've got 0.41. Now, that doesn't have a 7 in the hundredths, but it does have a 4 in the tenths, so it would go here, 0.41. 0.79, it has got a 7 in it, but it's in the tenths column, so it doesn't fit our Venn diagram. So we put it on the outside, 0.79. 0.19, no 4 in the tenths column, no 7 in the hundredths, so it could go round the outside, 0.19. And then finally, 0.42, well, that's got a 4 in the tenths column, but it hasn't got a 7 in the hundredths, so that would go there. Hopefully, you have got all of those decimal numbers in the correct place. Well done if you do. Let's have a little look at what you're going to do today then. Okay, so I did say we are going to be looking at rounding decimals, and we're going to be rounding decimals to the nearest whole number and then also the nearest tenth. Okay, and I'm going to show you how to do both of those. Excuse me. So if I'm rounding to the nearest whole number, that means I need to look at the tenths column. That's the number straight after the decimal point. Now, if it's 5 or more, we round up. So if I've got a 5 or a 6 or a 7 or an 8 or a 9 in the tenths column, then I round the whole number up. The number in the ones column would round up. Okay, So, for example, here, I've got 8.2. Well, 2 is less than 5. So what I would write is 8 there. And because we're rounding to the nearest whole number, I then don't need to put a decimal point, and I don't need to put a 0 or anything else after that. I would just put the whole number. Okay? Here I've got 4.3. Well, 3 is less than 5. So that 4 will stay the same. But I would write it like that. And because I'm looking at a whole number, I can get rid of the decimal point, okay, and any tenths and hundreds, etc. And finally, we've got 8.6. Well, that 6 in the tenths column is bigger than 5, so it means I need to round the whole number up. So the 8 becomes 9. Okay, so you have got some questions that you are going to have a little go at. And what I'm going to do is just show you, because you've seen some single digit ones, I'm going to show you just with this one here, just how easy double digits are if you've got tens and ones as well as decimals. So here, let's have a look here. 36.5. Well, 5 or more, I round up. So that becomes 37. Easy peasy lemon squeezy, isn't it? I'll do one more. Okay. 38.8. Well, the 8 is bigger than 5. I've got more than 5 tenths in there. So I'm going to round up. So that becomes 39. So in your purple book, what you are going to do is you are now going to have a little go at rounding the rest of the numbers to the nearest whole number. Okay, so we're rounding these decimals to the nearest whole number. Remember, when we round to the nearest whole number, then we don't need the decimal place, the decimal point anymore. We can just remove it. So this was 36.5, but 5 tenths, I've rounded up, so it just becomes 37. I don't need a decimal point. Okay, so you've got 3.4, 5.6, 8.3, 9.5, 24.9, 45.1. We've done that one together. 13.2, 56.5, 20.3, 49.5, then over here, 76.4, 57.3, 89.9, and 67.2. That's probably your trickiest one. Okay, so remember, you are just going to round to the nearest whole number. Purple books, you need something to write with. Have a little go at these, and then we're going to check if you've got your answers right in a moment. Pause the video, have a go. Right, year 6, let's have a look how you got on then. So 3.4 becomes 3. 5.6 becomes 6, because this tenth, the 6 in the tenths column is more than 5, so we're rounding up. 8.3, it becomes 8. 9.5, we're rounding up again, and that becomes 10. Okay. 24.9, rounding up again, 25. 45.1 just becomes 45. We've done this one already. So 13.2, I've got, that's less than 5 in the tenths column, so it becomes 13. 56.5, again, we've got that 5 in the tenths column, so we're rounding up. So that becomes 57. We've done that next one. Then we've got 20.3. Well, the 3 is less than 5, so it stays as 20. Then we've got 49.5. We're rounding up because it's 5 or more. So that becomes 50. Then here, I've got more room this side, so I'm going to just write them here, if that's okay, guys. So 76.4, that stays as 76. 57.3 stays as 57 because these are not in a tenths column. We've got numbers less than 5. And 89.9, that becomes 90. And finally, 67.2 is 67. Hopefully, you have got all of those correct. It's nice and easy once you remember that rule, okay? 5 or more in the tenths column, when you're rounding to the nearest whole number, it rounds up. So now we're pretty proficient with that. We're going to have a little look at rounding to the nearest tenth. So remember, our tenth column is the one immediately after the decimal point. So what we need to look at now is the hundredths column. So in this number here, 3.47, I'm looking at that digit there. And if it's 5 or more, then I round up my tenths column. Okay, so that will become 3.5. And I'm rounding to the nearest tenth or to one decimal place. Okay, so let's have a look at the next one then. So we've got 6.18. Well, I've got to look at that hundredths column. That's more than 5, so that's going to become 6.2. Okay, here I've got 2.41. So I'll look at my hundredths column. It's a 1 in there, so I'm not going to do any rounding up. I'm not going to increase it. It stays as 2.4. Here I've got 5.75. My hundredths column is 5, so I've got to round it up so it becomes 5.8. And then here I've got 7.63. So I'm underlining that column there. Okay, and I'm going to increase that by, well, I'm not going to increase it. I don't need to increase it because that's less than 5. Okay, so 7.63. The 3 is less than 5, so it is 7.6. And then we've got 4.9, and then there's nothing there. So that would be a 0 there. So because I've got no hundredths, that would just stay the same as 4.9 because I'm rounding to the nearest tenth. So just like we've just done, you've got a few numbers, decimal numbers, to have a go at rounding to the nearest tenth. Now, my advice would be, like I did, underline the hundredths column, and then you know. And remember, 5 or more, you're going to round up. Now, this time, you notice we did have the decimal point, and we did have the tenths cut because we're rounding to the nearest tenth. When we rounded to the nearest whole number, we didn't need the decimal point. We didn't need anything after that, but here we do. We need the tenths column. That's what you're going to be increasing or keeping the same, okay, depending on what the hundredths column is. So 2.24, that would become, if I underline the hundredths column, it would stay the same. The tenths column would stay the same, so it would be 2.2 for the nearest tenth. Okay, so I have a group of decimal numbers on there that all need rounding to the nearest tenth. So see if you can have a go, and we'll check and see just how well you did in a moment. Okay, pause the video, off you go. Right, year 6, let's have a look then, shall we? So 6.72. If you're looking at your hundredths column here, it stays as 6.7. The next one, 2.36, well, the hundredths column there is bigger than 5, so it becomes 2.4. Here, 9.98, well, I'm going to increase that by 1. Well, that would make it 10. So that actually becomes 10.0. Okay. 7.81. Well, I've got a 1 there, so it would become 7.8. Okay. Okay, that would become, so 7.81, because that's 1 there, we would just be 7.8. Right, the next one, 0.12 would stay as 0.1, because that's 2 there, we don't need to increase it. So over here, 1.32 become 1.3, because the hundredths column is less than 5. 2.76 will become 2.8, because that 6 is larger than 5 in our hundredths column. Then we've got 11.7. We've got 12.4. You should have got 5.5. You should have 3.1. And then over here, we've again got to increase by 1, so 2.9. Then we've got 11.1. Then here we're increasing because it's 9, so we've got 29.9. And finally, we've got 2.1, because that 6 in the hundredths column is larger. Okay, so now you should be really, really brilliant at rounding to the nearest whole number and rounding to the nearest tenth. So I've got a little task that combines the two. So here are some events in a sports day. Okay, so the long jump, the length that was jumped was 4.25, the winning jump. In the under 16 category, it was 3.97 meters. In the high jump under 11s, 0.93 meters was thrown and was jumped. And in the high jump under 16, it was 0.86 meters. So what you've got to do here is you're going to round these lengths, these distances that were jumped. Okay, you've got to round to the nearest whole number, and you've also got to round to the nearest tenth. So in your purple book, you will simply write 4.25 equals, and then round it to the nearest whole number, equals, and then round it to the nearest tenth. You don't need to write that it's the long jump or the high jump or anything like that. Just write me those distances down and then round them up for me. Okay, pause the video, have a go. Right, let's see how you got on then with this task. So 4.25 meters to the nearest whole number. It is 4. I think my pen will work. I think it's still in the weekend. Let's try there. Oh, it doesn't want to work, does it? Let me try again. Oh, there we go. So it's 4 meters. Okay. To the nearest tenth, well, I've got to round up because I've got a 5 there. So it's 4.1 meters. Okay. Here we've got 3.97. So we're going to round that up. Okay, because it's bigger, it's larger. Okay, so that will be cut. The nearest whole number will be 4 meters there. Okay, and then again, we've got a 7 here. Well, that's going to round that up by 1. So that will round that up, so it will become 4 meters here. Okay. Then we've got 0.93 meters. Well, we're going to round that to 1 meter. And then it stays as 0.9 meters to the nearest tenth. And then finally, you should have got 1 meter there because we're rounding up. And then we've got 0.9 meters again for the nearest tenth, because that was a 6, so it needs to go up. Okay, hopefully you've got all of those right too. So what are you going to do today then? Okay, we've had lots and lots of practice at each of these. Well, you're going to use your book 5. So I'm going to put it on the visualizer here so you can see it. But if you get your book out, you're looking at book 5 and you're looking at page 21. Page 21. And you're going to have a go at question 1. So this question here, question 1. You're going to have a go at question 2. So you're partitioning decimals just like it's been done for you in there. Okay. And then you're doing question 3. You do not do question 4. So question 1, 2, and 3, because we've done lots and lots of practice and you've had a go at lots of decimals before this. Okay, so then when you've done that, you are going to, and I don't think I put the page there, silly me, so let me do that now. So book 5, page 21, okay, and then question 1, 2, and 3. And then the challenge is this. You've got to circle any of the numbers that could be rounded to 3. To the nearest whole number, it could be 3. Then any of those numbers you'll circle that could be rounded to the nearest whole number being 6. And then any of these numbers here you circle that could be rounded to 13, the nearest whole number, 13. Okay, so today, recapping, we've looked at rounding decimals to the nearest whole number, rounding decimals to the nearest tenth. You've had a practice at those. You will have practiced in your book as well. And then the challenge, which of these decimals could be rounded to the nearest whole number, 3, which could be rounded to the nearest whole number, 6, and which could be rounded to the nearest whole number, 13. Okay, good luck everybody. Have a fabulous Monday and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye guys, bye.